My Boy Scout troop was headed on a 4-hour drive to a summer camp just a couple of weeks before I was supposed to move halfway across the country. I had plans to ride in one vehicle and, right before we were supposed to leave, I changed my mind and rode with a different truck. We were only 20 minutes from the camp and the car I was supposed to ride in got into a head-on collision, killing the leader and seriously injuring the other boys in the vehicle. I'm pretty damn lucky, and if I hadn't switched spots I would have had a massive concussion, severe whiplash, and some broken bones. God was definitely looking out for me that day. This one's stupid, but oh well. When I was like 10 or so, my family had the inflatable raft in the shape of a banana, thus we called it the banana. One time my cousin and I were riding the banana together, and for whatever reason my mom decided to go insanely fast and snap the rope a lot. It was breakneck speed and my brother, the one who was supposed to tell my mom when to slow down and shit, wasn't into her slowing down, even though I was screaming at him to slow down. I never fell off, because I thought I would die if I did. So yeah, I survived. About 6 years ago, I had some stomach issues. Sometimes it hurt that much that I had troubles to move, but usually, if I ate something, it went away. Until once in the night, I was at home alone. The pain was insurmountable, even painkillers didn't work, so I called an ambulance, packed my stuff, and went outside to wait. It took them only about 10 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. We drove with the emergency lights to the hospital. I had to wait in pain until they found out what was. The gallbladder produced stones. The stones couldn't pass, so my pancreas started to digest itself. If found out soon enough, there is a decent chance of healing. Conservative therapy was 3 different painkillers, and no food until the pancreas calms down. Surgery is needed, but they try to avoid a surgery as long as your pancreas is kinda better. So after a few days I was sent home with a date for the surgery about 1 month later. No problems at all until the day before I had to come back. My stomach started to hurt again. I called my dad. He picked me up. What is the worst that can happen when I show up one day earlier? During the ride, about 15 minutes, my body started to cramp up and I began to sweat. Cold sweat, and I couldn't move because of the pain. This time I didn't have to wait at all. My body temperature was down to 33°C. The infection number was more than 100 times higher than usual. My body shut down. Again, waiting with painkillers to get better. When they wanted to send me home with date for the surgery, I was already prepared to be picked up, dressed, packed my stuff, waiting for my dad. The doctor came in and told me that this won't happen. They are not able to send me home due to the most recent results. The stones were pretty aggressive, and they decided to remove my gallbladder 2 days later on a Sunday. My surgeon came in on his holiday due to that emergency. Later I was told that a heavy pancreatitis has still a lethality of about 50%, so I just won to coin flips. 3 years ago in the Netherlands on holiday, to play a MTG team tournament, my mates and I built our decks and we decided to utilize the remaining time to get some food. My colleagues packed their stuff and left. I tried to stand up, but I wasn't able, so I used my hands on the table to get up. My knees felt weak. When I turned and tried to walk, I stepped down into nothing, just fell down, and couldn't get up. Luckily at such tournaments, there are many people. One guy close to me jumped up, pulled me in a chair, and started to check my vitals and legs. I was there, but I couldn't feel my legs. The people from the first aid came with a wheelchair and brought me to the station, called the ambulance. It took them 1 hour to arrive, and I had already horror visions of my future. How can I get in the airplane back home? How can I reach my flat in the 4th floor without elevator? How can I do my job and everything else in a wheelchair? I was still shaking when I tried to stand up again, when the ambulance arrived, and I could walk again, only slow but able. The hardest part was to convince my brain that everything is working again. Being unable to do tasks so easy like, yep, walking is horrifying. Back at home, my doctor sent me to make some MRT/CT scans, with the diagnosis Shire, transient ischemic attack. You will never have to wait for anything. So I got the scans and checks on a Saturday. Really scary because I couldn't decipher the note, so I didn't care what my diagnosis said. Just later I realized that I was checked for a stroke twice in a really short time at the age of 36. About 10 months ago, I spent the night at my we didn't live together yet. She had to go to work in the morning and forgot her mobile at home. So when I got up, I brought her the mobile and went to the bus stop to go home. I waited at the station and started to feel dizzy. The bus was at the red light close to the station and the next moment I woke up at the ground. My chin hurt and people were standing away from me. I could hear one person muttering, "Oh, are you fine?" My chin was bleeding and I could feel a hole. I asked for a napkin and had the luck that a Red Cross station was close by. Obviously I passed out for no real reason. Nothing was found. I had the luck to fall on the ground face forward, so it was less damage to my skull and no harm to my brain, even though it hit hard and I got 6 stitches on my chin. I was also lucky not to fall in front of the incoming bus. The first episode was pretty much the closest to die. The second one was the most horrifying because I was complete clear in my brain. No agony, just desperation. Meanwhile I know that I'm pretty much unkillable. There are a few moments. When I was about 2 years old I almost suffocated from a piece of apple. My aunt saw me turning red. She just grabbed me by my feet and shook me until I spit out the piece of apple. Then there was the time I had a car accident. I was picking up a friend of mine in her hometown. Actually it was some houses in the middle of the woods. Since I didn't know the location that well I asked her what the fastest way out was. She told me to turn left at the end of the road. I did. Finally having asphalt again I sped up, and after the next turn I realized that the road hasn't been cleaned yet. It was winter and the road was full of snow. I hit the brakes because I was way too fast for a snowy road. I panicked and the next thing I remember was waking up in me upside down car. My friend and I were fine aside from a few scratches and bruises and head itch. Next to where I crashed was a massive tree that I apparently was lucky to have missed. And the third story, I was at a train station. I had just given back the keys to my last apartment to the landlady. It was in a ghetto-ish part of the city. I was texting my new roommates. I moved to a better part of the city as the train arrived. I was about to enter it with my smartphone still in hand. Next thing I noticed was that my phone was missing. I was turning around and following 3 people running away. I managed to grab one of them by his hood and throw him down. It was the jerk who stole my phone. After a fight I managed to get it back, but there were 2 other guys that started to punch and kick me. I went to the ground and quickly received a strong kick to my head. I somehow managed to get up uninterrupted only to see that one of them had a knife pointing at me. He told me to hand over my phone or he will stab me to death. I was paralyzed by fear. Suddenly they ran off because a few dudes came running to me yelling something about the police. I really thought I was going to die in this scenario. I'm sorry for writing so much, but you asked and I answered. I'm 16 years old, no big surprise, but at the age of 5 and 6 abuse can be a very real threat. Let me explain. It started with my mother and father arguing over simple things such as taxes, food, what we eat, etc. but soon very quickly got out of hand when my father began to become more controlling, even as to limit the foods in the house that we bought. I know it doesn't seem horrible, but hear me out. This soon led to my mother divorcing my dad and we having split custody over our argument that went too far. As this was upsetting to me and my 2 brothers, we still managed to get by doing participation jobs for the elderly and those who needed it, but it was not soon after that we hit the full blunt of our father's anger. It started with cruel words and punishments for simple accidents and mistakes like saying no to him about literally anything or trying to slack off on work, as these seem like they might be punishable. Let me remind you that these were full out painful consequences. As this became on and we grew older, we started wanting to make our own decisions, and this is where he grew angry. My dad never liked the thought of having us make our own decisions and actively made an effort to stop us from enjoying ourselves, playing with friends, sleeping in on weekends etc. This was fine for us because we expected this to happen soon after the divorce, but we didn't realize he would take everything from us all at once. On our after school day we came home to find our mattresses missing and pillow and blankets on the floor. Immediately we knew what was happening, and despite our protests we were forced to sleep on the floor. Next was the food. He limited to kale, bread, water, trail mix, and peanut butter crackers. At this point we started talking to our mom and she didn't see this as abuse yet. Not that we called it abuse at that stage. Then came the beatings. These beating would consist of us being thrown to the floor and punched, kicked, and beaten badly, as we would come to our mother's house with bloody lips and bruises. This is when our mother started taking notice. Soon after was the biggest fight yet, where he broke my brother's ribcage, dislocated my wrist, and gave my 3-year-old brother a black eye. We came crying and tired to our grandmother's house after calling the police, and spent the next week there. He was later charged with class 1 child abuse and was not allowed to be able to see us any longer. Me and 2 friends were on a field trip with our class. Near the end, we decided we were gonna leave a bit earlier than the rest of the group. As we were walking through the parking lot to the bus, a white van pulls up behind us. Yeah, stereotype. And I prod a joke saying, what if we were just walking and the back doors open behind us? No more than 3 seconds later, the passenger and driver side doors pop open and the 3 of us bolt like our life depends on it and hide behind some nearby trees. I saw the van drive a little bit more around the parking lot before leaving, and to this day I can't fathom how we managed to escape. The only thing that's ever gone to my mind is, what if they actually weren't kidnappers and we were just over exaggerating? PS. The windows in the back were quite heavily tinted. I could hardly see anything in the back, and the van had no side windows. This is kind of a not just me, but everyone in the house story. But, in July 2017, a few gang members shot through our living room window with what seemed to be an AK-47. A few hours before, my brother had gotten into an argument whilst trying to protect his friend from this gang. They ended up firing a couple of rounds when driving by our house. My brother, his friend, and his girlfriend heard the shots and ran right to the house, dodging bullets in every which direction. My mom, who is now 40, jumped over the coffee table, which surprised me, as she was and is still a physically disabled woman due to her back. Before she jumped, bullet ended up going straight through her hair. I'm an extremely deep sleeper, slept through the entire thing, woke up to a police officer shining a flashlight in my eyes. What makes this a not just me, but everyone survived story, is that one of the bullets had hit our hallway wall 2 centimeters from our heater. It is a gas heater. If the bullet were to hit the heater, we would all go boom. In the house were my brother, mom, me, brother's girlfriend, brother's friend, 5-year-old cousin, 2-year-old cousin, their mom, their dad, and the cat. Lord, it broke my heart when I had to sit at the kitchen table to hear my 5-year-old cousin constantly ask, in a scared voice and almost crying, "Dee, is this real?" Long story short, we almost went up in flames, and it gives me chills just thinking about it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more daily 6 PM Reddit uploads.